In episode 5, Spike, Jet Black, and Faye are hanging in the Bebop. They're discussing Faye's shower habits because she does a shower, bath, shower, but it takes up all the hot water. Her methodology, though, does make sense. I will say that. They then get an alert on their Cowboy station that tells them that there was a transport of prisoners that crashed, and there are prisoners running all over Europa. So it's kind of open season for Cowboys to go out there and grab some bounties. And these are some heavy, heavy hitters. We're talking Tony the Chop, Fat Elvis, and Uday Taxum. And Uday Taxum is somebody very, very close to Jet Black. You see, when Jet Black used to work for the ISSP, him and his partner were headed to go arrest Uday Taxum. They were convinced that there was a dirty cop working with him. And Jet Black in particular was convinced that it was Chalmers. So when Jet Black and his partner Fad end up arriving at the location of Uday, they end up running into him, but they get into a shootout. Fad actually gets shot in the process, which leaves just Jet to go chasing after Uday. And he catches up to him. He corners him in an alley, and Uday turns around, knowing the jig is up. And Jet Black asks him, all right, who are you working for? But then all of a sudden from the corner, headlights turn on. And Jet Black goes to look, and he ends up getting shot. That was the last case that Jet ever worked, because it was Jet Black who ended up getting fingered as that dirty cop that he was searching for. So when Jet Black sees the name Uday pop up on television, knowing that he's free, he knows that he can get the answer to who was actually the dirty cop. Maybe this could free his name. So he heads off, and he tells both Spike and Faye, you two work together. You guys go get some bounties. He then ends up calling Fat up to meet up like old times and see if they can track down Uday. And for them, it's like they never left each other. They start talking about jazz, talking about each other's wives, or I guess in this case, just Fad's wife, because Jet Black lost his to Chalmers. But then they actually get to the whole thing about Uday. Jet figures that Uday is going to need a whole new name, new identity. And he thinks he has a pretty good idea of where Uday would travel. There's a guy named Dagmar who runs an opium den, and as a side hustle, he also makes counterfeit papers. So they decide to go pay him a visit. As they're heading over there, Jet Black tells Fad that he is positive at this point that Chalmers pulled the trigger that night, and he was set up by Chalmers. Because Chalmers was the first one to arrive on the scene, and then Chalmers ended up stealing his wife. So they run on over to the opium den that Dagmar runs, and they convince the girl in the front to let them back to actually talk to him. And by convince, I mean flash their badge. And Dagmar's a little surprised to see him because he knows that Jet Black was in prison, but Jet Black just says, I was rehabilitated. They then ask him if he's seen Uday Taxum, but he says, no, I haven't seen him, and I don't do that anymore. But it doesn't take long for them to find Uday Taxum's new papers. They end up taking the guy's teeth. Yeah. They ended up taking Dagmar's damn teeth out. I should say like his fake teeth. They didn't just like rip them out, Saw style, but still, it's a cold gesture. They asked Dagmar, when's he picking up these papers? And he, after a while, admits an hour, maybe 2. So they tell him they're going across the street and a call when he shows up. As they're leaving the opium den, they see Chalmers and his new partner, and they figure this is a dead giveaway that Chalmers is a dirty cop. Chalmers is trying to get to Uday to kill him before they do. Problem is, Chalmers is also at the only exit, so they need to cause a distraction. And Fad does that by shooting what looks like one of the opium pods. As they're leaving, they both realize that Uday's not coming back. They just burned the paper guy. Cops are going to be swarming all over this place. What they're going to have to do is just figure out where Uday's going. After thinking about it, Jet Black realizes the only way Uday gets off Europa without papers is if he stows away in an interplanetary container freighter. That means they have to head to a sorting station because they figure that's where Uday has to be. So they end up heading to that sorting station, and there are a ton of shipping containers. They slowly make their way around, looking in each one, trying to find Uday, until all of a sudden they open up the right one, and Uday bursts on out, and they're in a chase. And just like last time, Jet Black ends up cornering Uday, and when Uday turns around, he says, Hugh? Ah, jeez. All right, don't shoot. I was just doing what he told me. Jet Black tells him, I'm not going to kill you. I just need to know who was the dirty cop. It was Chalmers, wasn't it? But before Uday can even answer, he gets a bullet in the head. And when Jet Black turns around, it's not Chalmers, it's Fad. Jet Black cannot believe that it was his own partner this entire time. He feels completely betrayed. And Fad tells him that he was working for the syndicate. They needed an inside man. He needed a lot of money, so it ended up working out. But Fad can't let Jet Black get away. So he ends up apologizing, but then shooting him. Although he's unaware that Jet Black now has a bionic arm, so the bullet just ricochets off of it. And Jet Black ends up shooting his partner. A few seconds later, Chalmers and his new partner end up arriving, and right off the bat, they figure it out, that Fad killed Uday and Jet Black killed Fad. Jet Black asks Chalmers, you knew he was dirty this entire time? And Chalmers says, yeah, I was trying to build a case. It's amazing, man, the luck you have. You just killed the only man that could have cleared your name. Jet Black just asks, all right, what do we do now? thinking that Chalmers is probably going to bring him in, but Chalmers says, nah, should probably get out of here before these cops show up. As far as I'm concerned, these two scumbags just shot themselves. Jet Black's pretty surprised by this, but he doesn't ask twice and heads off back to the Bebop. And the whole time, while Jet Black was trying to clear his name, figure out who the dirty cop was, you had Spike and Faye not being able to agree on a bounty that they were going to pursue. I mean, every name that was brought up, one of them was coming up with an excuse on not to go after it. But this time together was a nice bonding experience for them. They bonded over Faye's shower tactics, although not in that way. Get your mind out of the gutter. Spike ended up becoming a big fan of the shower bath shower. They also bonded over the fact that Faye is a legitimate bounty hunter. She ended up getting a bounty that Spike couldn't believe. So even though they didn't really want to work together, they ended up forming a little bit of a friendship. And then finally there's Vicious. He's going to meet with Mao, and he's bringing Julia with him. And this is a huge meeting. They know they only have one shot at this. And Mao works at a refinery. Looks like she runs the place. And she is not happy with Vicious because she's the one who gave Vicious that assassin to go after Fearless. The same assassin who ended up dead. Apparently this guy was super legit. She asked Vicious who was this extraordinary Mark who had the skills to kill my hitman, but Vicious doesn't tell her, simply saying that reparations will be made. He then gives Mao his big master plan, that they take down the Elders, band together. And since the Elders have 3 people at the top, which is Syndicate tradition, they're going to do the same. Their 3 people, however, will be Vicious, Mao, and a guy named Santiago, a.k.a. the Eunuch. Mao doesn't believe that Santiago will go along with it, but Vicious says he will if you ask him. And she tells him, don't underestimate the Eunuch. You think he's called that because he has no balls, right? Wrong. He's called that because he would snip the balls off of his enemy and eat them. Vicious says, well, tell them that I have 2 to give him. 2%, that is, of my net. Plus the Ganymede territories. Same for you, by the way. Mao tells him it's a good deal, but then says no. Unless Julia sings for me. That is a no-go for Vicious. And Mao starts antagonizing him, saying, this is why I missed your partner. Fearless, he had it all. And the more that she brings up Fearless and how Fearless was better than Vicious, Vicious's anger is rising and rising until finally he just snaps, yelling at her, fuck Fearless. You know what? I don't need you. But Julia realizes that they do need Mao, so she ends up singing for Mao. Because of this, Mao ends up agreeing, but when they get back to the penthouse, Vicious is pissed off at Julia. He feels like Julia just embarrassed him. And she tells him, as soon as you told Mao the plan, you needed her to agree, so I did it, and you ended up getting what you wanted. She then asks Vicious what was the whole thing about that hitman, but Vicious doesn't answer, just walking off. Julia pours herself a drink and thinks about it, and that's when it finally connects with her. The only person who could have killed the best hitman in the area. The only person that would have been drinking that drink in Anna's place. It's got to mean one thing. Fearless is alive. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought this sucked. Make sure to be nice in the comment section. If you don't see the next video up in the end screen there, I'll get it up in a few days, not to worry. And I have merchandise, so go buy a mug or something. It's never too early to think about Christmas gifts, folks. Once again, thank you for checking out this recap.